Okay, welcome back. Today I want to talk about choosing the right surf rod for you guys. All right, a lot goes into making this decision, choosing the correct surf rod. And I'm going to try to go over all the different aspects of selecting the right surf rod again for you guys. I guess the first thing we got to talk about is budget. You have a limited budget. I would definitely spend more money on a reel than on a rod. If you can get a mid-range reel, the rod is something you can always kind of upgrade as you go on, but the rod is going to outlast the reel. Even on some of these cheaper combo packages that you can buy. And I'm going to bring up different companies. I'm not affiliated with any brand, any company, any manufacturer of any of these rods. I'm only bringing them up as ideas and as examples. Like you can get like a Penn Fierce combos and stuff like that for surf fishing that you can find in the stores. The rod's probably going to last a few years. You might get a few years out of that rod. The reel probably 6 months to maybe possibly a year. Maybe if you've soaked that thing in the water and it gets sand all over it, it might just be one trip before it binds up. You'll be constantly servicing that reel, and eventually it's just not going to work for you. If you want to replace a reel multiple times during a season, then that's fine, but it's going to end up costing you the same amount of money in the long run as just picking up like a good, decent mid price pointed reel that is better built and maybe a little bit more sealed. But I really don't want to get into reels in this video. I really just wanted to stick to rods. Surf casting is expensive. It's quite a bit of money to jump into this sport, and you got to consider that not just the rod and the reel, but waders, terminal tackle, line, leader line, clips. All this stuff adds up. I mean, you're looking at dropping a pretty good amount of money just to get started with this sport. I don't want to try to discourage anybody. I mean, everybody starts off at their own level and little pieces at a time. And before you know it, you add up and you got everything you need. But starting off can be, I think, a little bit overwhelming, and especially choosing a rod is probably one of the most overwhelming things. There's so many different manufacturers and companies out there making these things. Everybody's got their own brand. Everybody's got their own market. So, budget is definitely the most important thing. And you can get some pretty good rods for a pretty good, decent amount of money. And you can get some pretty good rods for, not spending all that much, surprisingly enough. I did, check into some pricing just as examples to bring to you guys. And some of these rods I've used, some of them that I haven't. The first one I'm going to bring up is a Star Ariel, because that's probably one of the cheaper ones that I found. And I think it's cheaper than when I bought it. It was, the 10-foot 1-to-4 was about $75. And that rod has a lifetime warranty. So if you break it, they will replace it. I know from past experience, that was the first surf rod that I had was a Star Ariel, and I had a 9-foot, and I fished it on the sand beaches, I fished it on the jetties, I fished it in the back bay, and most of these rods, the rods will probably do anything that you ask them to do. There's little slight differences, nuances within the ratings and the action of the rod that I'll get into as we progress with this video. But most of the rods out there are just going to do you just fine. Like I said, if you're looking to spend not that much money, a model like a Star Ariel, or even a step up, the Star Stellar, which is about 125 compared to the 75 that the Star Ariel is, are not really bad choices. You break it and they'll replace the rod. There's other manufacturers that also have pretty good warranties also, and I'll discuss them moving forward as well. Really not too bad. Moving up from there, like I said, that's like the $75 to $150 match range that I found. Then you move into the Tsunamis, which I found pretty much rated from approximately $150 to $200. The Airwave Elite. I think they had a couple of other different models also that can't remember them all, but they all range from that $150 to $200 range. A step up from there would probably be getting into now a St. Croix, which I did see some models for between $200 and $300 about. After that, you're starting to get into Lamy glasses, $300 to $600, $700, and then you even have rods from Century going to $1,300. That's quite a bit of money to spend if you're just getting into this sport. But if you got the money, then go ahead. If not, then you consider some of the other options that I stated down below. Something else that's going to go into your consideration about choosing a surf rod is where you're using it. If and that's where we're going to get into the actions, and the lure and the weightings, the action and the weight ratings of these rods. So basically, if you're just fishing back bays and front side, pretty much, Ocean Beach, your best bet is probably between a 9 and a 10 foot, or even an 11. If you want to go with an 11, it gets you a little bit more distance, but I've always found that distance really isn't all that important in surf casting on the Ocean Beach. Most of those fish are at your feet. They're hardly ever at the end of the cast, occasionally, but the majority of the time they're in pretty close, and closer than you think. So where you're using it has something to do with it, and for that I would definitely recommend something that's between 1 and 4 ounces, lure weighting of 1 to 4 ounces. That's pretty much going to get you through almost all your surf fishing. 1 to 4 ounces is probably going to get you through almost everything. Normal, regular, even jetty fishing, probably on Long Island, the heaviest bucktail you're really using during normal conditions is 3 or 4 ounces. And that rod, most of the rods from 1 to 4 ounces will be able to handle that with no problem. So like I said, best all-around rod probably going to be a 10-foot 1 to 4. Right around there is probably your sweet spot, and most of these manufacturers make a rod that fits that. The other consideration is, what are you throwing also? And this is where we're going to come into action. So if you're throwing mainly, going out there at night, just basically throwing SP minnows or hard baits or bucktails or something like that, you can go with a fast action rod. Fast action, when you talk about action, you're talking about the recovery of the rod. So when you cast that rod, how long does it take to recover to go back to what it was before you casted it? That's what we mean by fast action or medium action, something like that. The faster the action, usually the more sensitive the rod. You feel every tap, every bump on it. You'll feel every hit. The faster the action, more sensitive it usually will be. Not that you don't feel it with any of the other rods. I mean, you do. I mean, we're talking about striped bass and bluefish here. They hit pretty decently most of the time. Where you really want to go with a more medium action or slow action rod, at least in a fast action, is if you're going to start pencil popping on top water. Can you do it with any of the other rods? Yeah, you can, but it's a lot more work with a fast action rod to use a pencil popper than it is to use a slower action rod, kind of like a Lamy Glass GSB, which is an older, this is an older blank, something that they made years ago, which is a bit softer than a lot of the newer rods that are lighter and more sensitive. Everything is made to be lighter now, which is good because you can cast it for a lot longer. Back in the day when you're talking about these guys were carrying like the old fiberglass honey lammies, those things, you wobble them and they'd shake for a good long time afterwards. But they were excellent for things like pencil poppers because the faster that rod recovers, you're not getting the action on the lure as you are with the slower action rods, and they're a lot easier to move back and forth. You really can't tell until you actually fish one like the difference of how much less work it is with a medium action rod to work a pencil popper and do that walk the dog motion compared to doing it on a faster action rod. So, those are all important things I think to consider. But for the most part, I think anything 1 to 4 ounces is getting you through the day. If you're going to start getting into some heavier weather, that's when you want or faster moving current, where you need, probably maybe 4 or 5, 6 ounces of bucktail to hit the bottom of an inlet. Now you're talking you want something that's rated a little bit more like a 2 to 6. If you're going to go up to, say, the Cape Cod Canal and fish, you're going to need something that's probably rated a little bit heavier, that you can feel safe throwing 5 or 6 ounces, because you need it up there, that's for sure. It's deep and that water is moving fast. And that's the other difference between technology of yesterday and technology of now with these 2-piece rods. A lot of the rods they used to make were all 50-50 splits, and a lot of guys didn't like them because on the older technology rods compared to the parabolic rods of today, you were fighting that rod through the entire blank of the rod. From tip to tip, that rod was bending, and you were fighting a fish on that bend. The newer rods today, the parabolic rods, you're only fighting that fish on the top third of that rod. So any of these 50-50 splits or even the 70-30 splits that most of the manufacturers are going with now, they don't have any effect on fighting fish. So, keep that in mind also. Most rods that you're going to pick up as a beginner and you're going to find in the store are going to be 2-piece rods. They're not going to be a 1-piece rod. Companies stopped making 1-piece rods and shipping them out because the cost of shipping them became too much. They would have had to increase the prices of the rods, and the rod prices would have skyrocketed. And so if you want to get a custom rod built, whole different story, then you can go with a 1-piece. I don't know too many rod companies that are making a full 1-piece anymore that you can find in the store. Everything that I've been looking at has pretty much been a 70-30 split. All right. Now, moving on from there, I think I got so many things in my head that I wanted to talk about, so it's hard to remember everything as I go over it. I didn't lay out all my rods out of here because I didn't want people to look at it and say, oh, that's what he's using, that's what I should get. No, you go to the store, and that's another thing. Hold these rods in your hand. Go out and shop. See which ones you like. Check out the warranties. St. Croix has an excellent warranty. Tsunami has an excellent warranty. They'll replace these rods if they break. I think St. Croix, my buddy's broken them in car doors before, and they had no problem replacing his rods. So, keep that in mind also. That, if I break this thing, am I going to be able to get it replaced quickly and, without having to pay for it? Some of the other companies have like a limited lifetime warranty or 1-year warranty, and after that, you're kind of on your own with it. All right, guys, and so kind of wrapping this up, most of these rods, like I said, will get you through whatever you're fishing. I think the most important thing is matching your budget and what you're comfortable with. That's probably the most important thing. Most of these rods are going to do exactly what you ask them to do. The rod is not going to make a difference on whether you catch fish or not. It's not. Even the reel is not going to make a difference on whether you catch fish or not. Where the reel comes in and makes a difference is how often you're going to be replacing that reel, because you're fishing in sand and salt. And it's mostly the sand that binds these reels up. The salt water does get in them and corrode them, but the sand, a lot of these reels are just not built to handle that. So again, I'm not affiliated with any of the manufacturers that were spoken about, but my opinions are my own. So wrapping it up, I think the rod that best suits your price point, as long as you're using something that, is going to handle between 1 and 4 ounces, you're usually pretty good, because even a 1 to 4 rated rod, you probably can easily throw half an ounce and probably a little beyond the 4 ounces. So that's it, guys. If you guys like this video, please like and subscribe. leave a comment down below. I got a lot of other content coming up, a lot of how-tos, a lot of surf tips to go over. That's it. Thanks for watching.